seen the neighbours before. But now I know that they have 2 children, and the mother likes to read in the garden. I've gotten to spend a lot more time with my sisters.
I'm just writing down some of the numbers for Corona because I do that every night.
When did you start?
I think it was the first day we got let out from school. It's the 8th. Yeah. And we had 105 cases in New York at that time, which is not very many compared to the 257,216 that we have today.
What has it been like for you, living in quarantine?
Well, it's not been that bad, really, personally, because I get to spend time with my family.
I
Especially my
enjoyed this
sisters, who I
one. I
haven't
thought it
been
was
with.
informative and kind of endearing. I like that it explored the cultural differences and divide between, Hong Kong and mainland China and even New York, and the way it introduced us to those characters that gave us those perspectives, and then just sort of let it roll out and really play out. And just give us that insight. I thought it was really invaluable for that, and just
It was
enjoyed it.
interesting. I always say the strength of the documentary rises and dies on the subject matter, and this was very such an interesting subject matter because it offered a unique perspective, a few unique perspectives of different people, and it really got into like the complexities of like Hong Kong and China and like how all of that works in ways that I never knew about. And so I think telling these stories is important. So good job, and overall, really well done.
Song was fantastic. I actually didn't expect to like it as much as I did, but yeah, it was great. Really interesting to follow these women and hear their stories and to see the comparison between New York and Hong Kong. And I really appreciate the discussions about identity and self-censorship and the sense of belonging to 2 places that are so far away from each other. As an immigrant who grew up kind of straddling 2 different cultures, there was a lot that I could resonate with, especially at the end when she's talking about being a child of an immigrant and that pressure to not disappoint your parents. Like, she really nailed that one. But yeah, I just thought that this was a really insightful documentary. And even though I'm not from Hong Kong, there was a lot that I could relate to, and I really enjoyed watching it.
Felt like a really beautiful love story to Hong Kong and its people and its culture. And I thought it was really well done. I really appreciated getting to hear the stories and feelings from different people around the world who call Hong Kong either their physical home or their cultural home, and navigating the spaces in between that. I definitely can relate to, being a mixed race individual with multiple cultures, and just trying to find your space within that. And where do you fit in, and are you enough of either or too much of one? So I definitely appreciated this documentary. I thought it was really beautifully done. I liked the format of it a lot, with the narration and then from the main woman, but then also having her interview multiple people. So yeah, it just goes to show that everybody's experience is so different, and how you can find home in places that are not necessarily your home, but you can find little pieces that bring that comfort and familiarity of your home. So I like this a lot. Great job.
Very, very interesting, fascinating piece. As an American, I don't get to hear a lot about the diversity of Hong Kong. So there's a lot new in here for me. Learning about just the diversity of thought and thinking and just cultures within the city, and hearing from the different residents. Especially I know that near the end there was she's talking to the one lady who has a love-hate relationship with Hong Kong, which is interesting. But I can suddenly I identify with that, because I think we all have that. We all have those kind of feelings about our hometown. So and it's very interesting that the perspective that's being brought here, because the filmmaker is speaking out from this place of, well, she's supposed to be in Hong Kong. She's moved there, but like she's stuck in New York, and she's like, I'm happy to be with my family, with my sisters, but I'm supposed to be in Hong Kong. But the pandemic has messed all this up. So it's an interesting that this was coming from a place of longing. How the filmmaker wishes that she was there, and and therefore I guess that was probably the motivation for making the film. So it was interesting because there was a lot of interesting cultural information, but it's all just so like human and emotionally motivated in a very believable, very just a way that's easy to identify with. So excellent work on this very, very, very nice piece. I learned a lot, and I love seeing the scenery and everything was edited so nicely. It was directed nicely. It was scripted nicely, spoken nicely, and it was a great piece. I hope it gets out there and gets seen.
It was done really well. I think it addressed some of the rising political issues going on there, but it did it through the lens of two different people with different backgrounds. One being in Hong Kong and one being in New York, and how that influences their perspective, but also how it impacts their self-image and their view of themselves, and how they address, certain political issues. Being from New York and maybe not feeling Asian enough as the person who would be from Hong Kong addressing these issues, and just this like this self-censorship in a way. I think it was beautifully done. I think both sides were presented clearly, and they balanced each other out really well to present just an overall very well done, nicely polished piece.
That the filmmaker was very smart in how she chose and captured footage and organized the film via these letters during the time of the pandemic, and therefore using the pandemic to frame the film. I think that the film itself was very genuine and earnest in the way that it sought to explore what it feels like to be an outsider living in Hong Kong, and through that perspective, what it is to be a native of Hong Kong. I think that the letters from both Lily and Katie, and also Katusha's experience, expressed these universal truths that many of us can relate to about what it feels like to be outside of the community that you are living among, and to have a conflict of cultural identity within you, and also to feel the separation of people in your neighborhood or your city via those cultural identities. And I think that bringing in New York as a comparison made a lot of sense to me personally, because this is where I've lived for many years, and I feel that sort of push.
A smart concept, and it was really a wonderful educational perspective getting this from these girls and what they were talking about their experiences in Hong Kong versus New York. I thought that this was edited brilliantly. It really kept the pace going, which is important in something like this. The voiceovers were really well done, being able to differentiate between who was talking, which girl was speaking, and what they were talking about. For me personally, I found that I had a lot of empathy for these girls and what they were struggling with identity and the issues at hand. I also thought that it was really educational. I had no idea about Hong Kong and about how your accent, the regional, the language that you're speaking, whether it's Cantonese or Mandarin, played such a huge part in being there. So this was really, really good, and it was a very educational short film. I really enjoyed it.